Sri Krishnarpanam Astu Shubham Bhuyat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Now today we will proceed on with chapter 11 verse number 27. Now as we are going through this chapter, these verses, we must keep in mind the title of this chapter, that this is the vision of the cosmic form, Vishwarupa Darshana. So what do we mean by the vision of the cosmic form? Here a devotee's mind has reached such a level of devotion or such a level of appreciation of the Lord that he sees this entire creation, this entire world is nothing but an appearance of the Lord. So whatever he sees in the world, wherever he looks, he sees nothing but divinity there. That is called Vishwarupa Darshana. So Arjuna has been, and in order to get this Vishwarupa Darshana, we need total purity of the mind. That means our ego, anger, jealousy, greed, everything has got to be removed. Then we see the same world. The world doesn't change. Our two eyes don't change. But with a different perception, purity of mind, we see the same world as divine. Everything is divine. But we must not forget one thing, that if we say the whole world is divine, in this world there are pairs of opposites. There is victory, there is defeat, there is health, there is sickness, there is profit, there is loss. So when Lord Krishna granted Arjuna Divya Drishti, Divya means divine, Drishti means vision, what it meant was he removed the dirt from Arjuna's mind. All that ego, anger, greed, jealousy was removed. And Arjuna was able to experience this whole Vishwarupa Darshana. He saw the whole world as divine. And in the initial verses that we saw, he was very happy, he was very pleased, very delighted by what he saw, all the wonders in this creation. But now, beginning from verse 23 until verse number 31, 23 to 31, he also sees that there is another part of this world, a different part of this world, a destructive part of this world. As we all know, in this world, there is creation, there is also destruction. So when he sees that part of the world, he is unable to bear it. Initially he was in a sense of awe, in a sense of what we call happiness or thrill. But now he is expressing a sense of fear at what he is seeing. He cannot take all this destruction going on. And where is the maximum amount of destruction going on? The maximum amount of destruction, where is it going on now? Right on the battlefield, isn't it? Because millions of soldiers are fighting and they are going to die on this battlefield. So Arjuna is also seeing that. Because don't forget, has the battle started or not started? Has the battle started or not started? Huh? Not started, right? So how come he's seeing that the soldiers are dying? How is he able then to see the soldiers are dying? The battle has not started. Sorry? Because of Divya Drishti, exactly. And Divya Drishti gives him the power to see the past, present and future also. So he is able to see the outcome of this battle. As you all know that this Bhagavad Gita started on which day of the battle? The narration of the Bhagavad Gita. Do you all know which day it started? The chapter 1 verse 1 starts on which day of the battle? Huh? What? 10th day of the battle. See, on the 10th day of the battle, a very important thing happened. Bhishma Pita was shot by arrows by Arjuna himself, and Bhishma Pita fell on a bed of arrows. So Sanjaya, who is the charioteer of Dhritarashtra, the blind king, he happened to be on the battlefield and he saw Dhritarashtra falling on a whole bed of arrows. And that was a very shocking news because Arjuna loved what we call Bhishma Pita very much. So it was kind of unthinkable that how would Arjuna shoot all these arrows to Bhishma Pita. So Sanjaya goes back to the kingdom of Hastinapura, which is about 100 kilometers away from the battlefield, and he tells the king, the blind king, that this has happened, this catastrophe has happened on the battlefield. So then the blind king asks Sanjaya in chapter 1 verse 1, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsava Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva Kim Makurvata Sanjaya. He says, O Sanjaya, assemble on the battlefield of Kurukshetra my sons, that means Dhritarashtra's sons, who are known as the evil Kauravas, and the sons of Pandu, the sons of the righteous Pandavas. What did they do? So then Sanjaya relates to him before the battle, how everything started, how Arjuna fell into a state of depression, how Krishna gave him the teachings, brought him out of his stage of depression, and then only the battle started. So now the battle has not started, yet Arjuna is seeing the future, is seeing the conclusion of the battle or what's going to happen. So as he's seeing all this destruction, he's getting more and more frightful of seeing all this terrible destruction. So let us go into verse 27 and see how this destruction is being described. It's very allegorical. We must not take these words literally, they are very allegorical. So now he says in verse 27, now in the previous verse 26 he mentioned a number of warriors, okay. So he's seeing now the destruction of all these warriors. Not only the warriors he mentioned in verse 26, but all the warriors, millions of warriors were dying on the battlefield. So he says in verse 27, Twa Ramana, I see all these warriors, Twa Ramana, rapidly at a great speed. What is happening to them? Vishanti, they are entering. Where are they entering? Te, O Lord, I see them entering your Bhayanakani, terrible Vaktrani, mouths. So here we must ask ourselves this question. The word Vaktrani, mouths, is used in plural, in terms of plural. It's not one mouth, it's many, many mouths. So what do these mouths represent? You will see the mouths represent a symbolic representation of death. So what he's seeing actually is death happening. But why is he seeing so many mouths? Is because destruction is happening at every part of the battlefield. Each and every corner of the battlefield, the soldiers are dying. So he's seeing this terrible destruction, and which is happening everywhere. And on top of that, not only are the warriors entering the mouths, but how they're getting destroyed. It's so frightening what he sees. So he says, O Lord, I also see these warriors entering in your mouth, and I see your danstra. Danstra here means teeth. What are the teeth doing? The teeth are also looking very karalani, very frightening. So not only your mouth, which has blazing fires in it, but I see your mouth also with the very frightening teeth. And why do they look frightening? Because he says, some of these warriors, Kechit, as they are entering your mouth, I see them samdrishyante. I see them vilaknya, sticking fast, dasanantareshu, in the gaps of your teeth. That means you are literally chewing them up, you are really biting them up. So what type of death does this indicate? Here he sees the warriors entering into the mouth of the Lord, and the Lord is literally chewing them up. What type of death does this indicate? What type of death? Painful death, isn't it? Chewing up. Can you imagine? He's chewing up all his warriors. So it indicates a very, very painful death. All these warriors, they are caught helplessly in the gaps of your teeth. They are trying to free themselves. They are trying to run away from death, but they are unable to escape. So not only are they being chewed, he says, he's describing the whole scene, what he's seeing. Uttamange, with their heads, churnite, they are being crushed by your teeth. Such a painful death that these warriors are meeting. Now, earlier on, if you recall, when he said in verse number 21, if you go back to verse number 21, there he described different types of people, right, who approach their death in different ways. So in verse 21, he was saying that there are a group of hosts of gods. Some of them have fear because their time in heaven is coming to an end. They have to give up their heavenly body and come back down to earth. But yet they enter into the path of death by singing your names and glory. So they are not afraid of death. There are also bands of Maharishis and Siddhas, the great saints and perfected ones. They also are singing your hymns and praying for the welfare of the world. They are also not afraid of death. So they are not afraid to approach death. But these people who are being... Now, why are these people not afraid of their death in verse 21 is because their death is not going to be a painful death. They are going to have an easy death, a quick death. But the other people who is mentioning now in verse number 27, who are suffering death, they are suffering because they are not pure people, they are not perfected people. So they have a lot of what you call bad karmas to suffer. So they are going through a very suffering death. And chewing means not immediately they are going to die. They are going to die slowly and painful deaths. It's a very slow and painful death. So different types of deaths also are being mentioned here. So now we also have to ask ourselves this question, why is Arjuna going through this period of fear? Because if all the impurities were removed away from him, by right he should not have experienced fear. But we must understand that Arjuna did not go through the process of purification himself. It would have taken him years and years and years. So this is only a temporary blessing that Krishna had given him. So that's why Arjuna is still experiencing some fear in seeing all this death and destruction also. Okay. So now we will see Arjuna carrying on describing this sense of destruction and death also in the next two verses, and you will see that they use different similes. In verse 28, the simile of rivers rushing towards the ocean is used. In verse 29, the simile of moths rushing towards the fire is used. So two different similes are used to describe this state of death and destruction. Then we will try to understand why two different similes are used. What is the reason of using two different types of similes? So now in verse 28 he says, Yatha, just as. Now if you notice the Sanskrit text again, first line you see the word Yatha, the third line you see the word Tatha. So this is a very common way of expressing a comparison. Just like this, so is that, right? So Arjuna is saying Yatha, just as Bahava. Bahava means many, rushing, Vega, currents. So just like there are many rushing currents of what? Ambu. The word Ambu here stands for water. So waters of what? Nadinam, of various rivers. So, where are the waters of the rivers rushing into? He says, all the waters of the various rivers are rushing into the Samudram. Samudram is the ocean. Okay. And what happens when waters of the various rivers, when they enter into an ocean, what happens? The rivers lose their identity, isn't it? If you say this river is this name, it has got this type of color, it is known by this type of name, the minute the river water enters into a samudra, into an ocean, it loses its identity, it merges with the ocean. You cannot tell which is river water, which is the ocean water. So, the example he gives here is the river entering the ocean. Now he says, Tatha, in the same way, Ami, these Nara Loka Veera. Nara Loka Veera means all these heroes, all these soldiers who are assembled on this battlefield, they are also Vishanti, they are also entering and rushing Tava Vaktrani into your mouths. In the same way, I see the rivers rushing into the ocean, I see the warriors also rushing into your mouth. And what type of mouths? Again, mouths in plural because destruction is going on everywhere. The mouth which is Abhi Vijwalanti, which is blazing with fire. So, fire is a representative of the destruction that is going on. Okay, fires of dissolution. So, now we will see what is the similarity between river waters entering the ocean and warriors entering the mouth of Bhagwan to meet their death. First similarity is magnitude. What do we mean by magnitude? River waters are in big quantities, millions and thousands and liters of water entering into the ocean. In the same way, death also is occurring in terms of thousands and thousands of people who are meeting their death every minute, every day. So the comparison is there, like millions of liters of water entering the ocean, thousands of people also are meeting their death every day. Second comparison, is it a choiceful situation or a choiceless situation that the rivers are heading towards the ocean? It's a choiceless situation. The rivers have no choice but to head in the direction of the ocean. In the same way, for us also, death is a choiceless situation. We cannot choose also. When the time comes, when does the time of death come? When does the time of death come? Which type of karmas? Prarabdha karmas. When the prarabdha karmas are exhausted, that's the time for us to meet our death. So it's a choiceless situation, right? Number 3, ability to accommodate. Just like the ocean can accommodate millions and millions of liters of river water flowing and does not itself overflow, in the same way, heaven and hell have got a lot of places empty for everybody, can accommodate everybody. So, no issue at all. Okay, same way. Okay. 4, waters of river came from the ocean and now merging back into the river, right? So, in the same way, where have we come from also? We've come from the Creator and we merge back into the Creator also. That whole cycle is there also. So, that's why ocean is also known as samsara, the ocean of birth and death. Because why? Just like the waters evaporate, go to the clouds send back the rain into the river water goes back again into the ocean. Same way, we also come from the Creator, come back to this earth, and eventually we have to also go back to the Creator also. So this is one example. Now let us see the second example of destruction that Arjuna is giving in verse number 29. Another simile he uses to compare also. Okay. So there what simile he uses in 29? Yatha, just as Patanga means moths. Samidra Vega, they are also rushing helplessly without any choice, they are rushing. Vishanti, they enter into what? How do moths meet their destruction? Pradiptam jwalanam, glowing fire. So the moths, we all know, they rush into the glowing fire, and nashanam, they meet their destruction. So that's the second example that Arjuna is giving. So now he says, tatha, again the same, yatha and tatha is used, comparison. Tatha, in the same way, Arjuna says, these loka, all these creatures, all these beings, samidra vega, they are also rushing helplessly without any choice, which is beyond their control. And where are they heading for their destruction? Vaktani, into your mouth, nashaya, to be destroyed. So now that is the second example that he has given. Now the question we have to ask ourselves, why give two examples? Why not just give one example? So what is the reason for giving two different type of examples? There must be some reason in it. Can anybody see the reason? What was the first example? Rivers rushing into the ocean. Second example, moths rushing into the fire, both meeting their destruction. But why two examples? No, both are unwillingly, because they cannot decide. Just like the rivers cannot decide, they have to go into the ocean. The moths also cannot decide, they are so attracted to the lights. So both are without choice. But why the two examples? What is the difference in these two examples? Not that simply they want to insert verses into the Bhagavad Gita for us to study, There must be some reason. One is painful. Okay, you can say that, like moths rushing into fire, it's more painful than rivers rushing into the ocean. But the example here is that, if you look at it, the first example of rivers rushing into the ocean indicates those who have to come back for another birth. Because rivers go into the ocean, water evaporates, comes back into the river, goes back into the ocean. So what kind of birth is that? Those who have not exhausted their karmas yet. So the first type indicates those type of deaths where people have to come back again. The second type of death, which are moths rushing and getting destroyed in the light, indicates the death of those people who have already exhausted their karmas. They don't have to come back again. So two different types of deaths are being explained. One, they have to come back. One, they don't have to come back. Why they don't have to come back? Because they have exhausted all their karmas. So that's why two examples are given in these two verses, okay, to differentiate. Now, also we must understand, I've sent today the notes on your WhatsApp, the 7 planes of consciousness. See how, where our level of consciousness is, and how do we raise our level of consciousness until that level where we don't have to come back for another birth. So in our body there are said to be 7 planes of consciousness. So depending on the type of actions you do, the type of activities that you do, whether you spend time in sadhana, whether you don't do sadhana, it will indicate where your level of consciousness is. Generally, for most human beings, our level of consciousness is in the lower planes of our body, which is known as what I've given you there, Mooladhara Chakra, Swadhisthana Chakra and Manipura Chakra. And where does this level of consciousness rest? It is in the lower level of our body. Now, what does it mean when consciousness is in our lower level of body? It means we are only concerned with what is in the lower level of body is our eating and what we call our reproductive organs are there. So that means our life is only focused on these basic issues, reproduction and what you call survival. That means your level of consciousness is only up to that level. But if you go on the spiritual path, you need to rise to the fourth level. From the 3 levels, you rise to the fourth level. The fourth level is called anahata, which is your heart level. Okay. Now, at the heart level is said to be the very first awakening stage of the spiritual journey. That means you are getting away from the mundane activities that you are doing, just reproductive and what you call eating, drinking, working. So you raise your level of consciousness to the anahata level. So there is something at that point. What happens? When you raise your level of consciousness to the anahata level, what happens? You start questioning about life. You start asking about life. What is the purpose of human life? What is the purpose of human goal? So there is some awakening in us. Okay, that means your level of consciousness has now reached the anahata level. Okay, now you start having thoughts about God, about scriptures and things like that. Okay, and you start your spiritual search. Then you have to go to the next level. As you go on deeper into your spiritual path, the next level is called the Visuddha level, which is the throat level. So slowly, as you can see, your consciousness is rising now. Now at the throat level, what happens? What are the indications? The aspirant gets extreme delight and peace of mind when hearing anything about God. So when you hear spiritual talks, you hear bhajans, your mind soars with happiness. Then you can understand that your level of consciousness has now risen to that level. Okay. There is, interestingly, in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, very interesting book, where Sri Ramakrishna spoke about 3 marks of a true devotee of God. If you want to know whether you are a true devotee of God, these are the 3 indications in a human being. What are the 3 indications? This is what Ramakrishna said. Number 1, the mind of the devotee goes into ecstasy when he hears anything about God. So if he hears bhajans, if he hears spiritual talks, his mind goes into a state of divine ecstasy. First indication. Second indication, the true devotee of God is able to easily absorb the teachings of the scriptures and put it into daily practice. So you find that the words of the scriptures make a lot of sense to you, they have a lot of meaning to you, and you are able to easily apply it into your life. Second mark of a devotee. Third mark of a devotee. The devotee is a master of his senses. He is able to lead a truly disciplined life, full control of his mind and his senses. So these are the 3 important marks of a true devotee of God. So now, having raised your level of consciousness to the level of the throat, then you have to go higher still, which is called the 6th plane, that is called the Agnya. The Agnya is the point between the 2 eyebrows, what is commonly known as the third eye. Okay. At this level, the devotee is able to subconsciously experience the presence of the Lord. So there is some kind of direct connection with the Lord. Okay. That's why Ramakrishna, when he was questioned by people, have you seen God? He was asked this question, have you seen God? And Ramakrishna said, oh yes, of course I have seen God. I have spoken to God, just like you are sitting in front of me and speaking to me. I have spoken to God, I have experienced God at that level. And then the question came to him, then why can't others also experience God? And Ramakrishna said, human beings cry buckets of tears for their land, their property, their title, their possessions. How many people even cry a few tears for the Lord? So if you really cry tears for the Lord, you can experience that Lord. And that means your level of consciousness has now reached at the Agnya chakra, which is the point between your eyebrows. And the final chakra, the 7th chakra, is called the Sahasra chakra, which is the crown chakra at the top of your head. So at that point, that means the devotee has become one with the Lord. Okay. So that is how we keep on raising our level of consciousness also. And this was described in chapter 8 also. when the Lord said that devotee who has reached that level, that height of consciousness, at the point of meditation, at the point of death, he is able to easily leave this body and not come back for another birth. Right? That is the highest level of consciousness, okay, for us all to arise. So now, that is what actually Lord Krishna has done. By taking away the impurities, he has made Arjuna's level of consciousness higher to experience this Vishwarupa Darshana. So now we look at the next verse, verse 30 also, as the last two verses 30 and 31, where Arjuna will express his fear at seeing all this destruction. So in verse number 30 now, he says, O Lord, layly yase, not only are you chewing up all these warriors who are entering your mouth, but you are licking them also. Meaning what? You see, earlier he said you are chewing them, now he says you are licking them up. So when do we lick our food? Tasty food, isn't it? Really tasty food. Oh Lord, you are enjoying this destruction. You know, how come you are enjoying this destruction? This is what Arjuna cannot understand. Because we always think of God as what? Compassionate, loving, kind, what we call forgiving. And here, Lord, you are crushing all these people, eating them nicely, enjoying them like rasam, like curry and all that, So Arjuna is going to ask this question, why? Why are you enjoying all this destruction? So layly yase, you lick grasamana while devouring, swallowing. And from which angle are you swallowing and licking and enjoying this whole destruction? Samantal, from every side. As death and destruction is going on in every corner of the world. Not only in this world, but even in the heavenly planets, even in the what we call the demoniac planets also, this destruction is going on. And you seem to be enjoying this destruction. So, vadane jwaladbi, with your mouth which is flaming with fire, okay? Loka samagran, all the creatures in all shapes, forms, sizes, animals, insects, birds, nothing can escape your what we call your sense of destruction. So he says, oh Lord, now it is getting more and more. The more he is getting frightened, the more destruction he sees. So he is describing this terrible destruction. Apurya is completely filling Jagat Samagram, the whole world. I see this destruction going on. Okay, and he says, I see Tava Ugra Bhasha, your fierce flames, Pratapanti, which are scorching every corner of this world also. So he is not getting any peace of mind now. He is getting into a state of fright, into a state of fear. And we have to understand, therefore, when he asks this question, he's going to ask, like, why are you enjoying this whole state of destruction? Why are you enjoying it? Okay. So now Arjuna is in a state of distress, is in a state of fear, and what he says in the next verse 31, now he questions the Lord, he asks the Lord. He says, O Lord, Akhyayi me, tell me, O Lord, Kaha Bhavan, who are you actually? I thought you were the most compassionate one, the most kind one, you are the most forgiving one, but now I see you here enjoying all this destruction that is going on. So now, which form am I seeing now? Ugra Rupa, I am seeing a very cruel form of yours, a very, very cruel form of yours. So Arjuna, what can he do now? He now bows down to the Lord and say, Namo Astute, O Lord, salutations to you. Deva Vara, O Supreme Lord. Prashida, may you be gracious to me. Why? Why do we bow down and tell the Lord, be gracious? Why is Arjuna bowing down to the Lord and saying, be gracious to me, O Lord? Why is he saying that? He's frightened of what? His own destruction. So he's saying, when my time comes, please don't give me a painful destruction. So even he is getting very frightened. Now the Lord is going to answer him, right? So we have to understand one thing also, that even the sages and saints also went through a very tough time. It is not that when they became sages and saints, they had a very marvelous life. Many of the sages and saints were persecuted, even suffered dreadful diseases at the time of death. So it is not that once you reach a realized soul, you become a realized soul, that you don't go through pain and suffering. Because there's always, okay, let me ask you then, why do saints and sages go through suffering also? When they become realized souls, yet they go through. What did Ramakrishna suffer from? Cancer, right? Why? Which type of karma? Prarabdha karma. This is one thing we cannot escape from. Even when we become realized souls, we cannot escape from the prarabdha karmas. In one of the Upanishads, a beautiful description is given to compare the three karmas with an archer. So it is said that sanchita karmas are like the arrows which are still in the box of the archer. You know, what do they call that box that the archer keeps with all the arrows in it? So those are sanchita karmas. Agami karmas are those arrows which have not been, which are on the bow but have not been shot, because we don't know where the arrow is going to go. Is it a good action? Is it a bad action? Prarabdha karmas are the arrow that has already been shot. It is on the way to its destination. Nobody can stop it. So that is the difference. You have to go through all your prarabdha karmas. Even the sages and saints understood that. That's why they did not, although they suffered, but they were really mentally prepared for all that. They did not really mentally suffer all that problems that they had in the later part of their lives. So now Krishna is going to answer now that Arjuna has asked, who are you, O Lord? So in verse 31, now in verse 32, the Lord answers to Devavara. Okay, sorry, I missed out the other half. Ichami, I desire to know Bhavantum, your real nature. This is what I want to know. Who are you in reality? Okay. So now in verse 32, 33 and 34, the three verses, Lord Krishna will now give him the answer. So Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the blessed Lord said, Asmi, I am. He's telling Arjuna, you see me enjoying, eating, chewing, licking all these warriors. Who am I now? He says, Asmi, I am. Kalaha, I am death. So death, what type of death? Pravruddha, mighty in nature, very destructive nature of death. Okay. So why is Lord described as mighty destroyer? There are many things that can destroy, hurricanes, earthquakes. There are human beings with all kinds of what we call mighty weapons that can destroy, but only Lord can be called the most supreme destroyer. Why is that? See, the word here used, pravruddha, mighty in nature. This destruction is mighty in nature. So why is Lord called the mighty destroyer? Mighty here indicates means the total destruction of the world only the Lord can do. That means even all the five elements, everything in the world is totally destroyed only by the Lord. He has only He has the power to destroy, isn't it? So creation is called what? Mahashrishti. Okay, Shrishti is creation. When the total creation happens, it's called Mahashrishti. That only the Lord can do. Preservation is called Mahastiti. Everything is maintained, preservation, that's called Mahastiti. That also only Lord can do. And when time comes at the end of the Kali Yuga, the cycle, when everything has to be destroyed, which is called Mahalaya, meaning everything is destroyed, that only Lord can do. So Lord only has got the total power to destroy. So Lord is saying, I am now Kala Pravada, I am the mighty Kala. And what has this mighty Kala right now doing? He says it has become Pravrita, it has become active. Where has it become active? Iha, right now, where? On the battlefield. Why? Because millions and millions of soldiers, they are going to meet their destruction here, right here on the battlefield. So what Lord is saying, this is the role I am playing now. You see, when we have to play that role, when a mother has got to show her fierce side to the child, she has got to show it, because to show the child that she means that she is angry. So Lord also at that time, He has got a role to play. So that's why Lord says, I got 3 powers. What are the 3 powers? Brahma, when I do creation, I have a different role to play. Vishnu, for preservation, I've got a different role to play. But when I take on the role of Shiva, then there is that anger, there is that destructive force that comes in. But actually it is that one Lord playing 3 different roles. So we see in 3 different moods. Okay. So he says, right now on this battlefield, Shayakrit, I am destroying. My role is to destroy everything. Lokan, all these people. So at that particular time, that's why you see me in this destructive nature, doing my job of total destruction also. So we have understood that therefore Lord has got that forgiving side, but when time comes for destruction, He also has got to play that role also. So now He says, I am playing the role of the destroyer. I think this is giving some echo sound. Okay, He says, I am playing the role of the destroyer, and so now He goes on to say, Rite api tvam. Now, if Lord, now here is going to come a very interesting point here. If Lord is playing the destroyer of the role in the battlefield, then what is the purpose of Arjuna? What is the purpose of Arjuna? See, we always say that God does everything. Everything is done by God. Then what is the purpose of our action? Where does our free will come in? This is a very important question that is going to be answered here. So Lord is now telling Arjuna that I am the Lord of death on this battlefield. I am destroying all these soldiers. Okay, I am destroying all these soldiers. So he is telling Arjuna, Rite api tvam, even without you, Arjuna. Because Arjuna did not want to stay on the battlefield and fight. He wanted to run away from the battlefield. So he is telling Arjuna now, Rite api tvam, Arjuna, even without you, if you decide not to fight and run away, Sarve Yoda, all these warriors who are now arrayed in front of you, they will cease to exist also. I will finish all them off. So actually I don't need you on this battlefield. I don't need you to fight this battle. So the important point is coming now. All these warriors will cease to exist whether you decide to fight or not, because I will destroy all of them. The Lord is saying that. Okay. Now what is the important message here that He is telling Arjuna? What is the important message He is telling you? He is telling Arjuna that if you decide to fight or not, these warriors are all going to die. So what is the important message? To us also, whether you do your duty or not, the world is going to go on. So what is the important message here to us?
Arjuna is an instrument which the Lord does His work.
Right, exactly. So how should we also consider all the work that we do, in whatever work that we do, we should always consider ourselves a instrument in the hands of the Lord. Never take credit for what you are doing. Don't think that without me this work is not going to happen. It's going to happen. One way or the other it's going to happen. So we will always consider ourselves as an instrument. When we consider ourselves as an instrument, what happens? What? Huh? not only do good, but what happens? What? The ego goes away. The ego goes away. That is the most important thing. You overcome, you fight your ego. The minute you claim credit for your work, that's when the ego gets inflated. So the biggest advantage, and there's a beautiful verse in a line in the very next verse, verse 33. We just have to live our life by this one line. Every action we do, we just repeat mentally to ourselves this one very important line, which we'll come to in verse 33. Okay, we'll look at this now. So now we've looked at all this destruction. Now a question we have to ask ourselves: is death auspicious or inauspicious? The old tree has to die and give you a seed for the new tree to grow. Imagine if the population of the world kept on growing and growing and growing, nobody dies. What happens? Today population will be 30 billion or 40 billion, right? So there is some auspiciousness, and of course we look upon death as inauspicious, but actually the whole cycle of birth and death is an auspicious cycle. That's why people get scared when they recite Mahamrityu mantra. People get scared. So what is the actual meaning of the Mahamrityu mantra? They don't understand, but they get scared. And then we have all these misconceptions in our mind. Then don't keep Mahabharata book in the house, because you keep Mahabharata there, there will be fight in the house. As it is, without Mahabharata also there's fight in the house also. So we have to get out of this misconception that this is all part and cycle of the eternal cycle of life and death. Okay. So for dharma to get established, adharma has to die. Correct? So adharma has to die because dharma is to live. So there is some auspiciousness in anything that dies also. When death, we are not talking about just the body, it can be death of anything also. Okay. So that's why we have to understand that Shiva is also auspiciousness also. Okay. So now we come to the next verse, the very important verse here. Okay. So what Lord is telling Arjuna now, even without you, whether you decide to fight or not, these warriors are all going to die. So therefore what should you do? And this is a very important message for us also. Okay. So he says here, Tasmat, therefore Arjuna, what should you do now? Tvam utishta, you arise. Because what happened to Arjuna? He sat back at his seat of the chariot. He kept his bow and arrow down, and he told Krishna, I don't want to fight. So now he's telling him, Tvam utishta, you arise, you get up. And this word utishta is also a very common word used in the Upanishads when the Guru tells the student, utishta, jagrat. Jagrat means wake up. Utishta means get up. Why? What is the Guru telling the student? Wake up to what? Utishta, rise up, do what? Spiritually also get up and do your duty also. Rise up, get up. Don't lie down there in a miserable state. Rise up and do your duty at least. Do what you're supposed to do. Don't run away from your duties. So you see the difference between Arjuna in chapter 1. He laid down his bow and arrow. He refused to fight. And what is the last verse in chapter 18? What type of Arjuna do we see? The Arjuna who takes his bow and arrow up. Arjuna Dhanudhara. The Arjuna who raises his bow and arrow, ready to fight all the challenges, ready to fight the battle. So the first point that Krishna is telling Arjuna, Tvam utishta, rise up, take up all your challenges, perform all your duties. Okay. So, and what you should do, fight this battle, labhasva yashaha, gain fame. If you rise up, fight this battle, you will definitely win this battle, you will gain fame. And by defeating your enemies, you will get famous. Okay? And not only will you get famous, Bhungsva Rajam, you will get back your Rajam, you will get back your whole kingdom. So two things are there. You will get back you will become famous, you will get victory over your enemies, and you will get back your kingdom. So now that is a message to us. And he's telling Arjuna, Nihita, all these warriors have been nihita, have been slain, maya eva, by me. Purvam eva, even before the fighting began, they were already killed already. Their account was closed. They were all determined to die. Okay. So now, the Lord is telling Arjuna a very important message here. This is the one that I said you have to remember this line and apply in every action. What is that? Nimitta matram bhava. Nimitta matram means instrument. Bhava, may you be an instrument in my hands. So every action that we do, we must be very careful not to let the ego come out. And the only way is that always consider ourselves as just an instrument in the hands of the Lord. Nimitta matram bhava. Now, the question is that we have to ask ourselves is that Nimitta matram bhava, where does our free will come in? If we say that God is doing everything, then where does our free will come in? Okay, so there are few things that operate in our lives. One is called free will, and the other is called becoming an instrument in the hands of the Lord. Okay, and at the same time there is also faith, F-A-T, faith, which is playing on your actions also. So we keep faith aside first. We talk about free will and being an instrument in the Lord's hands. If we say that Lord is doing everything, then where is our free will? And if I say it is my free will, I am doing action, that means I don't acknowledge the Lord. That means there is ego. So how do I reconcile free will and being an instrument in the hands of the Lord? How do I reconcile these two things? Now, another question is, if you consider Lord to be the doer of every action, then who should get punyam and papam? Correct or not? So if tomorrow somebody tells you, Lord is the doer of everything, then you say better than Lord takes the punyam and papam. I don't take the punyam and papam. So who should take punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam? So you see the direction we are going on. We are going to a wrong direction now. So now we must try to reconcile my free will against being an instrument in the hands of the Lord. So how do we reconcile this? Basically, I must align my free will to the laws of Dharma, then I become an instrument in the hands of the Lord. I repeat, I align my free will to the laws of Dharma, then I become an instrument in the hands of the Lord. So I use my free will. I don't say I don't have free will. I have free will, but I must align my free will with the laws of Dharma, and then I consider myself an instrument in the hands of the Lord. Okay? Then there is no ego. Every action we do as an instrument in the hands of the Lord. So we recognize we have free will, but we must align our free will with the laws of Dharma. It is when we go against the laws of Dharma, that's when we violate Dharma, and then we don't become an instrument anymore in the hands of the Lord. So here is a very important message. Just this one line, if you can just remember this, Nimitta matram bhava, apply this in all your actions, the ego won't be there at all. We won't face any problems at all. Okay? So now we talk about faith also. So faith also is there. We have to understand free will is there, faith also is there. Now, what is the difference between faith and free will? Swami, this Sri Ravi Shankar put it very beautifully. He said, consider faith, F-A-T-E, faith, to be your height. Faith is your height, right? That what is your height, you cannot control. What is free will? Free will is your weight. Your weight is your free will. So, free will are things you can control. Faith is things that you just cannot control. Okay, and most important is nimitta matram bhava, to determine that very important point. Okay, so this is the message that Krishna is giving now. So now he carries on in verse number 34 to tell Arjuna now, this is what you should do. Fight the battle, be an instrument in my hands. So what should you do? He tells Arjuna in verse 34, Tvam Jahi, you destroy, you just kill. Okay? Maya Hatam, those warriors who have already been killed by me. You see, sometimes when you have this play, in the school, they tell the person, you just shoot the arrow, and then whether the arrow hits the person or not, that person is told what? You just fall down. That's all. So that means what? The whole play has already been predetermined. So same thing Krishna is telling Arjuna. Tvam Jahi, you just do your duty, shoot the arrow to the warriors, Maya Hatam, who have already been killed by me. So he says, do not grieve. Vyatishta, don't be afraid. Carry on doing your duties. Because it was Arjuna who was afraid of what? He said, by killing all these people, I am incurring sin. So he is telling him, if you become an instrument in my hands, there is no ego, there is no question of sin also. You are just doing your duty also. So he is trying to assure Arjuna, because if you go back to chapter 1, verse 36, you can see what did Arjuna say there. In chapter 1, verse 36. Chapter 1, verse 36, page number 17, right? So he said, that time he was trying to tell Krishna why he did not want to fight this battle. He said, O Janardana, what joy can we derive by slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? Sin alone will accrue to us by killing these felons. So he was worried that by shooting the arrows and killing these people, he is taking on sin. But Krishna is assuring him that you will not incur any sin at all. So why? Because you just have to do your duty. That is very important. Just carry on doing your duty. So who are the enemies to be slain here? So the Lord mentions some of the names here. Jayadratha. Now again, if you read Mahabharata, you know what are the roles all these people played and why particularly Krishna mentions these people. Jayadratha was married to Dushala. Dushala was the only daughter of the blind king Dhritarashtra. He had all sons, I think 100 sons and one daughter. This was the daughter who was married to Jayadratha. And in fact Jayadratha will be killed by Arjuna on the 14th day of the battle also. Okay. Then he mentions what we call some other names there. Karna also. Karna, who was a sworn enemy of Arjuna. Okay. Dronacharya, who was the what we call the guru who taught warfare to all the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And also he mentions Bhishma Pita, whom also Arjuna shot on the battlefield also. So all these names he mentions to Arjuna and tells him that you have to do your duty and kill all these warriors. And then the Lord has finished now saying what he wants to say. So when we come back next week, we will see what Sanjaya now says. And then after that, from verse number 36, these are the most beautiful what we call prayer verses. So verses from 36 to verse number 40, let me see, 44, 44, verse number 36 to 44. These are the very beautiful prayer verses which we always recite when we do the evening arti here. Okay, so they are a beautiful form of prayer, a beautiful form of expressing our love and devotion for the Lord. Okay, and we will come back and we will look at these verses next week. Okay, so we end with the prayer. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Thank you. Hari Om.